Welcome back to Creative Thinkers. My name again is Miguel Valenzuela, and we have a wonderful guest today, somebody that does something completely different and out of the box. Mandy Shantyne Lopez, who is the owner and creator of The Portal. Mandy, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Miguel.
So we actually have spoken before. I met you a while back, and we have a lot of really interesting things to talk about. But one of the things that we always start off with is understanding who you are and how you grew up. Can you give us a little bit of background on that?
Well, I'm a native to El Paso. I was born here, raised here. I went to the University of Texas at El Paso. I lived out a lot of my life in the theater.
Really?
I performed in all the theaters here. Viva El Paso was a big one in my life and in my shaping and understanding my culture. And I basically took everything that I could here, and then as I graduated from college, I spent 8 years in Florida.
Nice.
And I cultivated my skills as a performance artist, an actor, an agent, and then I moved back to El Paso because I felt like I had a lot of things that I wanted to share and bring back over here to my border city, my hometown.
So lots of interesting things that you've gone through. As a child, as a young individual, did you have a lot of influences by creative people that really sparked something in you?
Oh yeah, all of my teachers. So from the time I was 13 till I was 21 when I graduated college, I had a very interesting life. I was always performing, I was always in rehearsal, I was always training. It was mostly because my dad, basically, that was the way he disciplined me. He was like,
why is that?
You're gonna pick two things to do. You're gonna pick a school activity and an after school activity because you're not gonna have time to do anything. And I think I was about 12 years old and I thought that was the meanest thing he could have done to me. But now I'm 34 and I'm like, my dad did the greatest thing for me.
Because I think that created a lot of interest and a lot of pushing you into other things. How did that affect you?
It cultivated me who I was going to be in my multidimensional sense. Mm-hmm. And so I learned acting and dancing and singing and everything that I wanted to do. There's volleyball and stuff in between, but really the arts. And so then I was a dedicated performer. And with that, there's discipline. And so you go to school, you go to rehearsal, you go to the show. And my teachers were great influences on me.
Of course.
They, besides my family teaching me basic manners and stuff like that, they taught you, like at the end of a ballet class, you went up to your teacher and you were like, thank you very much for the class, maestro or maestra, and you bowed to them and, you thank them. And, the same with my theater teachers is they were so, most of them were men. There was like one woman, but most of them were men, and they taught me just the great discipline, and they taught me how theater was political, and they taught me just how to, just be committed to what you're doing and be good at it, And so to this day, I don't talk to them anymore, but I admire how big influences they were in my life because they brought me literally to this moment right here.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things that we do here is talk about creativity. Through creativity and through the influences that you had, can you give us one specific example of how things changed in your mind by maybe somebody that told you something or an activity that you did? Maybe things that people can understand when they're doing those things that they can look for.
When we were acting, a lot of the times we were, you study the craft in depth in college. And a lot of the times the misconception about acting or being a performance artist is that you're just kind of mimicking, you're playing. And the in-depth craft and study of it requires a very holistic practice. It's psychological, it's emotional, it's physical. And that in itself was intriguing to me that we were able to have these notions and these concepts and execute this, what we would call a character on stage or on camera.
Right.
And besides that, we were learning the design of the set, we were learning costume design, we were learning the choreography of the direction and or, if there's movement in dance.
So lots of different elements within that, right?
Exactly. So it was the realm where everything, had its place, everything had its orchestration, and that to me was incredibly creative. And one of the things now that we're talking about this that I remember is being in one of my college directing classes, and his name was Chuck Gordon. He was one of our directing teachers. And he said, the greatest way to, really invoke creativity in what you're directing in the scene or in your show is to have great limitation.
What do you mean? Or what did he mean by that?
He meant like if you just had 2 chairs and a table and a small like 5x5 space, that's your limitation. But within that, you have such like this expansion to be able to create within that. And what are you going to create within that? How in depth can you go with that? You know?
So does that mean that even if you're limited with certain things, you can create something big through that?
Yeah, it allows you, that limitation paradoxically allows you to be expansive, to open your mind, to really have this forethought of design, of, you know, really being innovative with what you have to work with. Even if it seems simple, it's up to you now. Cultivating that skills, being innovative in your design and how you're going to execute that, how you're going to direct that. And as an actor too, how many times can I move from this chair to that table to make my point, right?
Exactly.
So I take that notion for everything that I do in my life right now.
So that literally formed you into what you're doing today.
Totally. Limitations, I love limitations because guess what? They're my cauldron in which we can brew, in which the innovation can come through. Because when you have so much, sometimes you have everything and you have like a huge inventory of everything to use, you get a little kind of like frazzled. And sometimes the work isn't as authentic and isn't as in depth and true and have that like deep energetic meaning because you have just so much to work with. You have like if you're working with so many paints, but what could you come up with if you only had like 2 paints?
True.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that that's interesting. You bring up an interesting point because sometimes when you have too many things, that's what limits you. But a lot of people think the less is what limits you. What's your perspective on that?
Again, it's going back to an acting note my high school teacher would give us, and he would say, less is more. Less is more in your
Which
delivery.
is something that we hear a lot, right?
Yeah, absolutely. In your delivery, in you know what you're trying to say, what you're trying to convey, even if you come dress up for something, you know, less is more. And it's that, you know, that's really what I think creativity, where it comes from, is having that expansion in the mind to be able to go to these places that we don't even, you don't even know what you're doing half the time.
Right.
It doesn't even make sense, but for some reason you keep putting the pieces together, the design together, and it starts to take its own form, its own shape. And I have the belief system that art forms have their own spirit, have their own consciousness. So when you start to give them the skeleton, it will start to work with you and collaborate with you and then show you the way, basically.
Yeah, which is another thing, and it kind of brings us to these objects that we have in front of us, because I want to ask, what is the portal? I've actually visited you there, but tell the viewers what literally it is.
So the portal is, I call it the portal for creative intelligence.
Okay.
And what we're doing there is truly we're measuring, studying, and activating creative intelligence, which is CQ. So we have IQ, we measure intelligence, right? We have emotional intelligence, EQ. No one's ever talking about CQ, our creative intelligence. And that is the cultivation of both the IQ and the EQ coming together in a holistic form into our body. And what we do, so I incorporate artistic mediums. So these are sound bowls.
Okay.
The sound bowls and these tuning forks, what we're doing here is aesthetically they look pleasing. So we're working with color therapy. We're teaching...
And expand on each thing, because our viewers may not understand these concepts. So what is color energy or color theory? What is this all about?
So color therapy brings us back to the notion that when we see bright colors like this, or the spectrum of the rainbow, we can go, our brain is able to then generate visuals as far as what we need a visual to tap into that inner mind. Does it need to be, you know, immediate? Do we need a type of paper because we're a student? Do we need to come up with a design because we're a painter? Or are we even simply unfolding and designing the life in front of us? Sometimes we're stuck and we're like, I don't know what I want to do. And it's like, okay, when we can see color, color activates that imagination stamina. Like,
yes,
okay.
It absolutely does. Because one of the things that I teach literally in my class is how colors can stimulate the mind. And one of the questions I ask my students is, if you have a child, when you decide to do that, take that big step, Are you going to put them in a gray room with no stimulation whatsoever? Or do you feel that it would be better, even though you don't really understand art or creativity, would you rather put them in a room that has paintings and building blocks and mobiles and all kinds of things to stimulate the mind? Every single one of them says absolutely, color, design, shape, form. I said exactly, that's the connection. So in what you're doing, the colors are the ones that are kind of pushing us or giving us that kind of inspiration?
Exactly. So we're starting just from the fundamentals, colors, okay, colors. And they are, you go into some schools and they're very just like gray and kind of like sad. And I really don't understand how anyone could learn in those conditions. We need colors. So
stimulation, right?
Exactly, the stimulation. So the colors start to invoke that kind of thread of imagination.
Right.
And there are also studies behind colors that if you wear certain colors, they enhance your mood. If you want to be happy, people would say, wear more orange and yellows or paint your walls those colors, you know.
Right.
If you want to feel more tranquil, go into the purples or go into the blues. So we have that whole notion. We have the tuning forks and the bowls that are made with quartz crystal. And they're both tools of vibration and frequency. So vibration and frequency, and what does this have to do with creativity, is creativity, again, in my belief system and what we are studying, starts in the mind, has it in the body, and it is these concepts that, again, we can't work from a perspective that is kind of like one-dimensional flat. We want to work from multidimensional,
because
right?
we are multidimensional.
Because we are multidimensional, and more we're learning those concepts in our everyday being. And so, you know, as we're talking about, for example, the schools that need more like, you know, an innovation facelift.
Energy, right?
Energy. So my job is to invite entrepreneurs, you know, educators, kids, of course, and teenagers, absolutely. But everybody in the realm of creation in some way. You don't necessarily have to be a traditional artist of painting and sculpting and stuff, but everyone who's molding society needs to have that creative intelligence activated in order to imply that in their own life and in their work.
And you're talking about maybe like politicians and leaders?
100%. They're the first ones. They're the first ones that I invite them. And I do work with, you know, some local politicians. I always have here when I lived in Florida and training them.
Right.
And really tapping into this notion. And, you know, first, it's like when we get on the airplane and they say, put your oxygen mask first and then you can assist others.
Right.
It's the same concept. You come to me, let's work on your vibration. Let's study how our body in a holistic way comes together. Let's bring together that right and left brain notion so we can work as a fusion being. That's the CQ, that's where it comes from.
Right.
So our perspective is more expansive. It's expansive, it's up and down, it's all around us to be able to create. What do you need to create?
So is it almost like you're opening up the mind to a certain degree?
Totally. The mind, the body, the spirit, the energy field, however you want to see it, we're working on that. We're working on our vibrations. When we're in, you know, rooms with lots of Wi-Fi all the time, even some of the advertisements or the mainstream music that gets played on the radio, the TV, you go to doctors' offices, people driving in the car, whatever, they have these basic TVs and radios on. The frequency is purposely programmed to make your nervous system go out of whack.
Really?
Yeah.
Without us even knowing?
Without us even knowing. It's purposely made to do that. So when we come here and we're working with frequencies, we are working a lot of the time with 432 hertz frequency. That's what I tune most of the bowls with, and I have the solfeggio sticks, so they go into the solfeggio scale. So
Which I don't know what it is. You want to expand a little bit on that?
Solfeggio scale is do, re, mi, fa, so, what we usually learn in music.
Right.
So it's the standard, just like how we have colors are the standard, your primary colors, you have your standard.
Primary and secondary.
Exactly, you have your standard solfeggio notes and vibration.
And that is out of whack, generally.
Generally, 100%, everyone's out of whack. Yes.
So you tune us.
Yes, so you're coming for tuning. We're tuning you.
Okay.
And we're working what's also called your energy points, which are your chakras.
Talk to us about that.
So chakras, they start at our root to the floor, and we have 7 of them. They go to your root, they come from your stomach, they go what's called your solar plexus right here. You have your heart, your throat, your third eye, your crown.
Mm-hmm.
And these are all the colors of the rainbow, spectrum of the rainbow, red all the way up to purple. Yep, indigo. And they're lights, they're energy in your body. So if someone feels uncomfortable with chakras, which comes really from more of an Eastern medicine perspective,
Mm-hmm.
well, scientifically, we would call them energy points. And that's the truth. Nobody can argue that as not being real.
Right.
So these energy points, which they correlate, they're in our body. We all have them. We've talked about the nervous system. The nervous system 100% is a catalyst to these energy points being activated or being unactivated,
Okay.
being balanced or being out of balance.
Mm-hmm.
Again, so it all goes back to frequency and vibration. Our bodies are vibrating. We've never stopped vibrating.
Mm-hmm. And that's part of our energy.
100%. It's part of your energy. So you have a mental body, which is the mind, the thoughts, very powerful. You have a physical body, you have an emotional body, and you have an energetic body. And believe it or not, your energetic body, if you put your hand out in front of you, it stretches about 7 feet in front of you, even before you walk into the door. Your energetic body from your heart battery is more powerful than your brain battery. It's number one, this is number two.
Oh.
Is emitting a very strong frequency.
So is that why sometimes I'm not going to walk into a room like this, but sometimes people sense you coming?
Absolutely. And there's some of us that our energy is so strong that even if we're mad inside, but we're not saying anything, you can walk through a crowd of people and they can feel it. They can feel something's a little off, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So again, we're in a society where the Wi-Fi is hitting us, the frequencies are low, they're making our nervous system freaked out. There's even a patent. I'm sorry, forgive me, I don't know the actual numbers of the patent, but I'll get back to you on this.
Of what?
Our computers and our cell phones are messing with our nervous system purposely. It's purposely getting us back into that like fight or flight mode, the more we're on them.
So it's like a resonance of vibrations of some kind of sound or frequency that then messes with us. So then we're out of whack?
Correct. So we're all walking around as unbalanced, out of whack, untuned instruments. So it affects how we feel, and it affects how we perceive the life in front of us and other people and situations.
Right.
So it's a whole thing that's just completely in this illusion of unbalance. And so then what happens? We start to see gray in the world, lack of color. Which is
not a good thing. But this is one thing that we spoke about earlier, that this is something that we might think is new, but this is actually pretty old.
Yes.
How old is this?
These are ancient practices of creativity. I mean, we go back to, I was telling you about the Egyptians. The Egyptians had temples where they would do sound healing, and they would bring the practitioners, they would call them practitioners, they would bring the people in, they would give them a story about themselves. And this is also very frequent, and we were reading in Native American folklore too, is when someone came and they thought something bad about themselves, or the tribe wanted to punish them.
Thinking negatively or something?
Exactly, thinking negatively. The practitioner, the shaman, the healer, however you want to, say it, would come and tell the person a story about themselves, a very good story. This is who you're going to become. This is who you are. This is what's going to unfold. Whether that was true or not, the point was for the patient to believe it and for he or she themselves to shift that perspective in order to heal themselves. Because that's the true healing. That's the true removing, all the negative stuff. It's within you. Right? So these are all just tools. You yourself give yourself the permission to fine-tune yourself to match that vibration, that frequency. You're giving your permission to your body, your energy field, your mind, your emotions.
So that energy, well, I don't want to call it energy. The concept is actually within us at all times.
At all times.
We just have to change it.
So it's like, how high or low is your frequency is what's going on. And that has to do with when we're in alignment, that's where the creative flow or force comes in, as I like to call it. And when you're in that creative flow, you don't see obstacles anymore.
Right.
It goes back to that limitation. What limitation? I'm here in this vast array of design and conceptual concepts that I just want to get out, whether it's physicalizing, materializing something, or writing something, or, you know, leading a team. You know, that's why it's so important for people, I think, in the business realm and in the education realm, where they work with so many people, to have a hold on their energy, because you're in leadership.
True.
People need your visions. People need your words. You know, so it's within us. It's within us, and it's about really helping to shift our culture to activate what is. Some people would call it new age. There's nothing new about it. They're ancient.
That's why I asked the question.
Yeah, these are ancient practices, you know, Egyptian stuff, again, Native American, a lot of the Middle Eastern cultures, it's a very, you know, big thing. A lot of the stuff I would say even happens in our Western culture, but no one's talking about it.
And why is that?
Because a lot of it wants to be kept as a secret, to be able to keep some of the people in that state of being afraid. When you're afraid, you're easier to control.
It very well could be. That's very true. So one of the advantages of this is to not be in control, but I mean, be in control of yourself.
Exactly. Be in control of yourself, be in open awareness, be in control of your own destiny and your own reality. And to, again, CQ, what is your creative intelligence? How is your brain working in your superhuman, super powerful self? Of merging that left and right, the logic and the creativity. Some people will just say, oh no, I'm just creative. Oh no, I'm just logical. Well, guess what? What if we could be a fusion of the two? How infinitely powerful could you be? Absolutely, 100%. What other things do you do there at the portal? So other things that I do, like the very practical things, is I help with design. I work with a lot of businesses and entrepreneurs on, if it's design and marketing, their logo. I do a lot of coaching because that's my main background as a coach. I was a performance coach. And so because I've spent a lot of years working with the mind, the body, and the energy field, I help people tap into that. I help them realize their full potential and how to get there. Right. A lot of the times we just need someone to just reflect back to us some things, ask us some questions, and we figure out what it is that we need. It's almost like just opening that little Pandora's box of energy, right? Exactly, yeah. So I'm simply just, you know, the energy quantum practitioner. You are the portal. I'm the portal. Well, you know, the portal is its own entity. So I feel I'm just like, I'm there to assist the portal. I'm there to act upon the portal, to be the translator of the portal. So, yeah, and besides the coaching, I also create things. I do a lot of creative designing work. I put on a lot of shows. I'm a writer. I do a lot of media. I have a podcast, Transmissions of a Cosmic Woman. Nice. I do spoken word for people, awake mantras for people to really practice that awake meditation. What is it to be awake and creative, not just quiet? Because we have to put that in real life. We're not always sitting in a cave, like in silence. Yeah, and it's interesting because I feel like a lot of people sit in that little cave. Exactly. How can we implement that in like the hustle and bustle of life? Do you know what I mean? Absolutely. So it's a lot of that. It's a lot of, you know, teaching and I'm in constant creation, basically. And then I also am a mediator. So I you know, in the real world, I mediate cases and for companies and stuff like that. So I do a lot. I wear a lot of hats. However, my main focus is really studying the quantum field, the energetic work, how we can activate that creative intelligence. And it's really a thread that keeps embodying itself in different opportunities and in innovation. So yeah, and one of the things that I always say to myself anyways, and to others that I speak with, is you can't limit yourself. No. You are not one-faceted. We are multifaceted individuals, and that's what we need to do. If you feel like you need to do this, that, or the other, that's what you do. And we need to keep moving forward. What's your idea on that? Is activating the truths of who we are, which is understanding our vibration and frequency, understanding our energetic body, and being able to tap into those higher resonance, higher, you know, that's why I say we teach a lot of metaphysical philosophy in classes at the portal. Right. Is you can come and you can learn, you know, in depth about all this stuff so it can benefit you. And so by ourselves, you know, we start to implement that within So then it shows without. So it's the micro and the macrocosms.
Right.
It's the world within here. And when the world within here starts to shift, starts to change, starts to get that higher frequency, starts to become in holistic alignment, then we're able to embody that for others in the world and for ourselves, and to really just live our creative path. So if I have the enjoyment of creating the portal, then that resonates with everybody else to give them permission to also create what they want.
Absolutely.
And for me, in my perspective, that's how we build a great new world, honestly, you know, because we're bringing in new ideas, new innovations. We're tapping into things that sometimes people would consider taboo in the past. And it's like, well, what if we really started to live our best life? What if we really had the experience of we got everything that we wanted? What would that look like?
Yeah, exactly. And one of the most important things is how or what can you advise other people? So what kind of advice do you have for the general public that maybe can't come to you for this?
I would say we're in the age of information. Get online, investigate for yourself. What is your highest excitement and your creativity, that thread that drives you, what makes you happy? And just do a little bit of that every single day. And more of that will start to unfold, more of the clues.
And what comes for you in the future? Because we're very quickly running out of time.
Oh, everything, I hope.
Like what types of things? What's the one thing that you think for sure in the future I'm going to do this?
I hope to continue to open up more portals everywhere. And we also do aromatherapy CBD.
Oh, nice.
So more of that everywhere. And I have a couple of treatments for a couple of books and movies based on a lot of these concepts. So making this more mainstream in a more creative way that you can watch and you can read. And so it's fun, and it's not so like, I don't get it, it's over my head, it's intimidating.
Yeah, that's one thing that I think that everybody needs to understand, is that it doesn't have to be intimidating.
No, it's actually our most natural part of our organic selves. It's natural. We all have it. We are all it. And it's fine in whatever way you want to tap into it.
And which ways have you tapped into it?
Well, I work a lot on my chakras. I am very much into the esoteric realms. I study a lot about that. I am very a paradoxical being. So I'm just constantly diving into the metaphysics. It's one of my guilty pleasures. So
and it's very good. It's always good to have guilty pleasures. So if somebody wants to come to the portal, where is it located? How do they get a hold of you? Do you have an Instagram? Do you have a Facebook?
Yeah, you can visit us at our Instagram. It's theportal_EP. You can send us a direct message, or you can come down to 601 North Oregon, Suite 3 in the Roderick Art Space commercial store area spaces. And we'll have a up-to-date website next week on easy bookings and more on what we do, more of the quantum, creative entanglement that we're working on over there.
Which is a very complex thing, right? One of the things that I always try to tell the viewers is that creativity is super, super important. And I can tell that by what you do here at the portal, it is one of the most important things that you do. I always tell the viewers, creativity has to be part of your life. So just 2 or 3 more words on why creativity is important.
Oh, creativity, it unfolds everything. It is how I believe literally that we're putting every single block into how the reality is going to, how we're going to experience why we're here in this body as a human on this earth in this time, which is a very interesting time. I'm excited for this time. I feel blessed to be in this time.
New and modern, isn't it?
Yes.
And we're in the now. So speaking of the now, Mandy, I wanted to thank you for being part of our show, Creative Thinkers. And for all of our viewers, thank you for joining us one more time.